All right, guys, look at this. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this beautiful deliciousness. Hey guys, Ricky here from Connerty, Meadows Farm. Welcome back to our kitchen while we make delicious crispy roll. All right, so many years ago, I was given this recipe. And when I was given the recipe, it was given to me with margarine as the ingredient. Now, I've made it with butter a couple times. What I want to do is I've made it with butter and margarine just in the last week or so, and I froze it. This recipe freezes like amazing. And I'm gonna let them thaw and warm up, and I'm gonna serve them to my kids with margarine, one with margarine, one with butter. I'm gonna see which one they like best. Whatever one they like best is the one that I will use in the video. All right, so let's go over our ingredients. We need corn syrup. We need sugar. We need some peanut butter. And we need some butter. When this recipe was originally given to me, the recipe called for margarine. You can use margarine if you don't want to use butter. We prefer the taste of it with butter. So we're gonna be using butter. So that's the first part. The other ingredients that you're going to need is, you're going to need icing sugar. You're gonna need cocoa powder. You're gonna need some more butter or margarine. You're gonna need some milk. And you're going to need some Rice Krispies. All right, they don't have to be that brand. They could be no name brand, but whatever. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get a nice big cookie sheet here. Just to give you an idea of size, it's almost the size of my arm. We're gonna butter this. So let's go ahead, we'll do that. And then after we butter that, we need a nice big pot. We're gonna be working on the stove. We need a bowl. And we're gonna do things in stages. Now, normally, I'm pretty like, do one step, do the next step. For this recipe, you do kind of have to move a little bit faster. So we need to have everything ready to go. All right, let's start with getting this done. All right, let's get this buttered up. I do find the easiest thing to do to butter, especially when it's out of the freezer like this one was, is to just hang on to it and butter it up and then go back with the brush and clean it up. And then we're going to grab the first ingredient, and I love using this little Pampered Chef push-up ingredient thing. We're going to put in our corn syrup, and we're going to use 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup. We're going to pop that right into our pot. And then once we've got that scraped in, the next thing we're going to do is grab the next ingredient, which in this case happens to be white sugar. And we are going to add 3/4 of a cup of white sugar. And no, I'm not perfect in my measurements. If you've watched me cook a few times, you'd know this. The next thing we're going to use and grab is our peanut butter. And we're going to do 3/4 of a cup of peanut butter. Again, I love this little push-up thing because it just keeps the mess to a minimum. But the thing with it is that you do end up with air pockets. So I always end up actually kind of heaping the peanut butter a little bit more just to make up for those little air pockets in there. And it just, so obviously it doesn't look like it's 3/4 of a cup because it's not. Now don't add this to the pot, just set it aside and we'll use it here in a few minutes and you'll see. I'm going to set our pot aside. We're not done with it yet, but we're going to start on the next thing. And we are going to grab our bowl, and in our bowl, after I fight to get this icing sugar down, we're going to grab the icing sugar and we are going to be putting in 1.5 cups of icing sugar into the bowl. And yeah, I kind of ran out, so I needed to grab the other one. And again, yes, I'm using measuring cups. Am I perfect? No. There's a little bit of give in this recipe, so it's okay if you mess up or put a little bit more or put a little bit extra. I mean, obviously try to stay as much as you can, but
It's not like hard and fast. It must be this amount. So you got a little bit of play there. Okay, so the next thing we need is 2/3 a cup of coca powder. You can sift this to make the chunks kind of go away. Oftentimes I just use my fork and I kind of squish them around, but if you have a sifter, obviously feel free to sift it. You can even sift the icing sugar and the cocoa powder together and kind of take away from having to stir it like I am right here. Either way, yeah, it'll get there. So you want to mix this together before we add the next ingredients so that it is uniform throughout. And as I'm doing this, I also squish down any more of those cocoa powder bits that I find. All right, and then grab a microwavable bowl, and in this bowl we are going to be adding the butter to be melted. Now we're not going to do this right now, and again you can use margarine. We are going to be putting 6 tablespoons of butter or margarine, your preference, into this bowl, and we're just going to put it in the microwave and we're just going to get ready. We're not going to do anything with it quite yet.
So this is the second set we've got ready. So our cocoa powder and our icing sugar. We have our milk here ready to go. And we've got our butter here that we will be putting in the microwave when it's time to warm it up. And then we've got our Rice Krispies. So that's the first part, or the second part. And we're just ready to go. Over here on our stove, we've put our pot with our sugar and our corn syrup, and we're just going to warm this up. Ready to go. We've got our butter and our peanut butter.
Now we are going to turn our stove on to low, and we are going to cook this down until it's smooth and it begins to bubble. And we're going to stir the whole time. If you don't stir the whole time, it's going to scorch and burn and stick and not be so wonderful. So just keep it low and keep stirring. And you can see here, I just put it on time lapse so you can see me stirring the whole time. And you can see it starts to lose its bits of sugar.
So you look, it's starting to boil on the outside edges. So now we're gonna stir in we're gonna turn it down a smidge. And then we're gonna stir in the peanut butter.
And once we get the peanut butter in there and scraped off, we're going to give it another little quick stir here to get that kind of mushed around a bit.
And we're going to stir in the butter.
And that is 2 tablespoons of butter or margarine, whatever your preference is. And again, you can see I don't measure exactly. It's okay. It still tastes delicious.
Now we're just going to stir this in until it's melted and mixed together. And we're gonna move over, we'll take it off the heat and we'll move over and stir in the Rice Krispies. This doesn't take long, don't stop stirring. Okay, I'm shutting it off. And let's move it over.
This stuff is pretty hot and it's pretty sticky, and you do need to move quickly at this point. So have your some sort of heat mat or something that you put this hot pot on and get it onto the counter. And then you are going to add 4.5 cups of Rice Krispies. That's 4.5 cups of Rice Krispies. And then you're going to stir that all together. And again, you have to work fairly quickly here because as this cools down, it's a lot harder to stir. And then the next thing you should do is have your cookie sheet lined up and ready to go. You can see I was struggling using a spatula, but we make it work. So just so you can see, if you scoop from the bottom, when you put the Rice Krispies on the top like that, all of the liquid is kind of at the bottom. So it's a good idea if you kind of spin it, not just stir it. You got to kind of get up from the bottom and get it all mashed together. And again, this is a fairly sticky mess and it is very hot and it holds its heat. So don't get burned. We'll just set that aside. Let's get our cookie sheet. Remember, our cookie sheet is buttered. And this is important that we have a buttered cookie sheet because this stuff is wickedly sticky. So we're going to scrape it out. And we're going to put it on the cookie sheet. And then we are going to spread it around. Now I'm going to tell you from experience, be careful what tool you use to spread it. I have broken a spatula or two in my time. The wooden part doesn't seem to handle the pressure very well of the squishing that I do. Do the best you can with a spatula. Just keep in mind, if you get really forceful like I do, you could burn it. So go ahead, once it's spread out a little bit, it does start to cool down, and then you can go ahead and use your hands to finish. You really want this packed. You want this packed tightly, and you want it packed well, because we are going to be rolling it, and you kind of need it packed. So set that aside. Let's get our bowl. We're going to move on to our next step, which the first of is putting the butter in the microwave and melting it. So, or margarine, whichever. So you want that all melted up, and then you're going to stir it in. Now this is going to get pretty thick pretty quickly, and sometimes it's really weird. Sometimes the weather will play a bit of a factor here, where it's just so thick you can't do anything with it. And even though we have 2 tablespoons of milk still to add, sometimes you may actually need to play with how much milk you put in. Start with your 2 tablespoons as suggested, and go ahead and stir that up. But you may find that it just doesn't blend very well, so you might need a little bit more. Some days it works fine, some days it doesn't. Weather's weird. It plays with havoc with some of the ingredients sometimes. But you can see here, like, it's just not a spreadable, it's just like a clump. So I just keep adding little bits, and I mean little bits of milk, until you get sort of a spreadable icing consistency. You want it slightly thicker than normal icing, but not so thick it won't spread. So you might have to play with it a little bit. Now we're going to bring our crispy part back, and then we are going to take the icing and we are going to put it in the middle. Now you do want to leave a smidge in the bottom of the bowl, because you're going to use that at the top, and then use your spatula and spread it around. Now when you first put it on, you think there's no way, there's not enough here, but there is. You don't want this spread thick or it won't stick together. You want a very thin covering of the icing. So just keep using your spatula and moving the thicker bits all the way around, and you can see I do get it all the way, and you can see the Krispies through the bottom, and that's perfectly fine. So just do your best to make it as kind of evenly distributed as possible. There you go. Finish it up. And then the last bit we'll leave there, and we'll use it in a second. Now here's the tricky bit. Well, it's still warm, so be careful. It's pretty warm. You're going to have to work at rolling it. And it does come apart, and it doesn't like roll perfectly. So you kind of got to squish and roll and try to keep its shape. So you can see I take my time, and I'm squishing as well as rolling, and I can see when the icing comes through, I need to squish a little bit more to get it kind of sealing together a little bit better. But you can't wait until this is cold to do this, or it doesn't work. Once I get to the end, I kind of pull it into the middle, and then I can take what would be the end of it, and I squish it down in. You can see I'm doing a lot of shaping and squishing. That's the theme, shaping and squishing. Now you're going to take that last of the icing that was left in the bottom of the bowl, and you're going to add that to the top. And again, you do need to work very quickly. As this cools down, the icing doesn't spread as well, and it can be a little bit messy. So the heat from the crispy rolls helps this still melt a little bit better. Sometimes it spreads a lot better, but for some reason this particular day the icing is being a little wonky. Still tastes great though, so don't worry about that. Anyway, just do your best. Get it all spread out as evenly as possible, and you may have to go back through and shape and squish. Now this recipe can obviously be made gluten-free. Just make sure that whatever style of Rice Krispies you're using are gluten-free. My understanding is the Rice Krispie brand of Rice Krispies is not gluten-free, but there are other brands out there that are gluten-free. So if you go ahead and you use those other brands that are gluten-free, you will have a beautiful gluten-free dessert. So I know for some of you out there that is a really difficult thing to do, finding delicious things that are gluten-free. And this is absolutely delicious. Now, I have made it without using brand name Rice Krispies. It turns out the same, so don't worry about that. All right, so our next step is that this is going to go into the fridge for 15 to 20 minutes or so. But during that time that it's in the fridge, we have to periodically check on it. And when we're doing those checks, we may need to squish it. Now, I had a really fun time maneuvering things in my fridge to make space for it, but you do what you gotta do. So here I am, maybe 5 minutes in, I'm squishing. You can see here how I'm squishing it back into shape. What happens sometimes when it's really warm is that it will kind of just start to flatten out like a deflated tire. So we have to go back in and kind of make it round again. And then just check on it periodically over the time frame that it's in the fridge. And here we are done in the fridge. Look at that. Tell me that does not look delicious. Trust me, it is. So we're going to take this off and we're going to get a cutting mat. And if you time this correctly, you can cut it straight from the fridge. If you find that it's too hard, you've left it in too long, because you can leave it in longer. Just leave it sit on the counter for 5 or 10 minutes or so until it softens.
All right, guys, look at this. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this beautiful deliciousness. Now, hopefully I haven't left this in the fridge too long. It can get pretty tough to cut if you leave it too long. So I usually cut it in half so that I can work with it a little bit better. What do you think of that, guys? See that? Isn't that nice? All right. So I'm just gonna move one half to the side for a minute. Now, what I usually do is I cut this into sets of 4 so I can easily freeze it. And I usually just guesstimate on the size. Careful, use a nice sharp knife. Now this freezes really, really well. So there's one set of 4. Another set of 4. Might not get 4 out of this one, but I can add from the other side. You can see what she looks like. So normally what I'll do is grab some shrink wrap. And then put these into here like this. And we'll just go ahead and and then this will go in a plastic bag and into the freezer.
When you want to eat these, take them out of the freezer, and of course you're going to have to let them sit on the counter for a little while to warm up. It can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour, but they're delicious and they freeze really well.
All right, guys. So very good. If you are going to eat these after they've been in the fridge or the freezer, just make sure you pull them out, let them sit at room temperature for a little while, because pretty hard on your teeth otherwise. Absolutely fabulous, delicious. This is gluten-free, but obviously it's not nut-free, so.
All right, guys, I'm going to show you the taste test.
So they freeze really, really nicely. It's not egg bread. But anyway, so I need to remember which one is this. So when I store them, I put them in a Ziploc bag and I wrap them up with shrink wrap. And they're cut and wrapped into a set of 4. So these are the 2 that I'm gonna compare. This one is the butter and this one's the margarine. This one looks like it held its shape a little bit better. And this one's the margarine. This one's the butter. I put some marker here so as these guys thaw, when I serve them, I'll know which one's which. Okay, so this is plate A and this is plate B. And I'm not gonna tell you guys what the different ingredient is. I want you to taste from plate A and plate B and tell me if you like A better or B better. Okay? You too. Good?
This one. Plate B, correct?
Yeah. B is that one. Which one do you like better? A or B?
There's not much different, but this one's nicer.
So you've both pointed to plate B.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to know what the difference is?
I don't know that one has butter and one has margarine. But that's...
So plate A was actually margarine and plate B was butter.
Oh.
And you both picked butter. And what's really interesting is when this recipe was given to us, it was given with margarine. But one day we didn't have margarine, so I used butter. And I actually am with you girls.
This one is like it's softer, I think, when you bite into it.
It has a better flavor,
Yeah,
I think. I like the flavor.
This one is sweeter than this one, I feel. But this one's still good. This one's just...
They're both fine.
Yeah, they're both good. So for sure, someone could make it with butter or margarine.
Yeah, it's just this one.
But I also preferred butter. So, thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and enjoying this treat. Tell me you don't want to eat that. Absolutely delicious. We'll see you next time on the farm in the kitchen. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So that one's A, that one's B. I just want you to take a bite of each one and tell me which one you like better. Poor Thomas is stuck in bed because he had surgery. It's real rough eating desserts, isn't it? In bed.
Apparently, I have asked a Herculean job, though I gotta give him props. He does cleanse his palate between taking bites of the 2 of them. So which one do you think he's going to choose, butter or margarine? It ends up that this is an absolutely Herculean job I've asked him to do, because for some reason, one bite after another, keep disappearing, and I have no answers yet. So I'm really not sure which one is better. But he's really thinking about it. I'll give him that.
Sure.
Are you just going to eat them all without telling me which one you like better?
In fact, yes. Yes, he was. He was going to demolish both of them without giving me an answer as to which one he liked better. I think he just wanted an excuse to eat both very quickly.
I mean, it can't be that hard.
But yes, it was that hard. Coming up with the just words to describe the explosion of taste running through his mouth was at an impossibility.
Subtly, but probably this one.
You like B better? So A is made with margarine and B is made with butter. And the girls both also picked B, as did I. So it's funny because when Vicky gave us the recipe, she gave it to us with margarine in it. But I like the flavor of the butter better. It didn't hold its shape as well,
No.
but I think the flavor is better overall with the butter too. I mean, it's still good. You could make it with either, right? Like if someone wanted to use margarine, I don't know that it matters that much, but the butter I think is just slightly better.
A little bit.
Good dessert though.